Okay, we'll be solving a quadratic equation by factoring. First step is to put it into standard form. You can see that it is set equal to 0. The next step is we need to factor it. So if we look at this, we have a binomial here, and this binomial has a greatest common factor. And so I'm going to take and factor out that GCF, and the GCF here is a 2x. And when I factor that out, that's going to leave me with 2x minus 3. So I now have it into factored form, and I need to use the zero product property. So I'm going to take this factor over here, set it equal to 0. This factor here, set it equal to 0. And then the last thing I need to do is solve each one of those. That tells me I have an intercept at the origin, and an intercept at 3/2 at 1.5. Okay, let's look at another problem. This problem is not in standard form. So the first thing I'll need to do is to take and put this problem into standard form by moving this 4 over to the other side. I'm now ready to factor this. When I go to factor this quadratic trinomial, so I have a quadratic trinomial where my a is equal to 1, so I know my x squared has to be x times x. I know that by looking at this negative c value that I'm going to have one positive and one negative. Now, if you need to pause the video and go off to the side and use your box to help you factor it, you can do that now. When we look at our factors though, we should have x plus 4 and x minus 1. That helps us to get x times x is x squared. -1 and positive 4 gives us a positive 3. 4 times a -1 is -4. And now we're ready to solve. So I'm going to set this equal to 0 to find out we have an intercept at -4, and this equal to 0 to find out that we have an intercept at positive 1. Now let's look at another type of problem. This one is also not in standard form. So I will need to take this -5 first and move it over to the other side so that I will be in standard form. So I'll have x squared minus 14x and then plus 24. So that's my standard form. I can now move this into factored form. X squared, x times x. Once again, if you need to pause the video, this is what might take you the most amount of time, is to be able to figure out the factors here. We do know that this constant c value here tells us that my signs are both going to be the same, and it tells me they're both going to be minuses. And that's going to help me get to the conclusion that this should be x minus 12 and x minus 2. Now that I have that in factored form, I'm going to use the zero product property to set each of the factors equal to 0. And then I'm able to solve to find out that I have a solution at 12, and I have another solution or root or x-intercept at 2.